Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai Barakatham to all my brothers. Shalom Yahweh Shamar El Athan Bahashem Yahweh Shai to all my sisters. This is your brother Sharmoff coming to you with another video on this glorious day. Today is the 14th day of the 12th month Adar, which is the feast of Purim. Now, the reason why we Hebrews around the world, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, the reason why we celebrate this most glorious, high holy feast day, which is the Feast of Purim, is because the Most High has delivered us from our enemies, which were the Persians. They wanted to destroy us, wipe us from off of the face of the earth, right? They plotted wicked imaginations against us, and the Lord delivered us. So we give all praise, honor, and glory, and we exalt the Most High Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. This is Sharmoff, the founder of Disciples of Yahweh Shai, bringing to you this video. Lord willing, through the spirit, that you brothers and sisters out there seeking truth will be edified. So this is the book of Esther. Matter of fact, I'm going to go to the book of Leviticus, right? Before I get to Esther, I'm going to go to the book of Leviticus, chapter 23, verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, concerning the feasts of Yahweh, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Even these are my feasts. So these holy convocations, right? These holy feast days of the Lord, they shall be holy. Let's get the definition of holy, right? Apartness, holiness, sacredness, separateness, right? Set apart. Set apartness, separateness, right? So to be holy means to be separate, right? Convocations. Convocation, convoking, reading, calling together. Convocation, sacred assembly, right? So holy is to be separate, to be set apart, set apartness, right? And convocation is a calling of a gathering, which is an assembly, right? So in these high holy days, we are commanded to proclaim them in their seasons, and also be gathered together in an assembly, and to be separate from the doings of the world and the man-made traditions of Babylon that are exalting other gods. We are to be set apart from those things, and we are to be set apart and be gathered together in convocations, which are assemblies, so we can celebrate the feast days of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, right? Verse 3. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest and holy convocation. Ye shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of Yahweh in your dwellings, right? So even the Sabbath, it is a holy convocation, right? Meaning it is a set apart assembly. People that have the same mind and following the Lord and keeping his high holy feast days and keeping his laws, statutes, and commandments, and becoming obedient brothers and sisters. You know what I'm saying? In his truth. Be holy, be separate, and come together with one another, right? Having the same mind. So this is the this is the first day of this is the 14th day of the 12th month Adar, which is the last month in the lunar calendar in the heavens, right? This is the 14th day of the 12th month, which is the last month of the year. the New Year's, the first month of the year is going to be April, Abib, spring forth, right? But we're going to get to the book of Esther, chapter 1. The book of Esther, chapter 1. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus. This is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 127 provinces, right? Now we're going to see where this person Ahasuerus is from, right? Which kingdom is he from? Which kingdom is he from? Ahasuerus, right? Title of the king of Persia, probably Xerxes, right? So Ahasuerus is the king of the Persian Empire, right? So Ahasuerus, he is king over India and over Ethiopia as well, right? His kingdom reaches from Persia to India to Europe, over 127 provinces, right? Meaning over 127 empires, basically. King Ahasuerus, this Persian, and his empire and conquered. Verse 2, that in those days when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the palace, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the provinces being before him. So in the 3rd year of King Ahasuerus, reign, of him being king in the Persian Empire, the 3rd year of him being king in the Persian Empire, right? He made a big feast for the princes and the servants, right, of Persia, of the Persians and the Medians, and the Medes, right, which are the Arabs, right, which are Ishmaelites. Verse 4, when he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty, many days, even in 180 days. So this man, King Ahasuerus, this Persian, he showed off his palace, right, and all his glorious riches, 180 days, right? 160 days. No, 180 days. So 180 days he showed off, his glorious riches, right, to his princes and his servants, right, of the Persians and the Medes. So 180 days he was showing off how much, gold and silver he had, right? Verse 5, and when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan, the palace. And we're going to see where Shushan is, right? Let's see. Shushan, or Susa, Lily, are, okay, so the winter resistance of the Persian kings located on the river of Ulai, or Coaseps. So basically, the palace of Shushan is also the Persian Empire as well. And when these days were expelled, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan the palace, both unto great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace, right? So this king, he made a feast unto the great, meaning the rich of the Persian Empire, and the small, meaning the poor of the Persian Empire. 7 days he made a feast, right, unto his people. Verse 6, where were white, green, and blue hanging fastened with cords of fine linen and purple to silver rings and pillars of marble. And beds were of gold and silver upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black marble, right? So his room was decked out. His palace, his chamber was decked out. It had marble floors, right? It had gold rings. It had, you know what I'm saying, red, blue, and white curtains. And it had the gold rings on the curtains as well. Verse 7. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another, and royal wine in abundance according to the state of the king. And the drinking was according to the law. None did compel. For so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure, right? So basically, King Ahasuerus, right, which is a Persian, he told his officers, look, you can drink however much you want to drink, you can drink, right? If you want to get drunk, you can get drunk. You're drinking for your pleasure. Verse 9. Also Vashti, the queen, made a feast for the women in the royal house, which belonged to King Ahasuerus, right? On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Bistha, Harbonah, Bigtha, and Abagtha, Zatar, and Carcass, the 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princess her beauty, for she was fair to look on. So basically, King Ahasuerus, he commanded 7 of his officers to go and pursue his queen Vashti, to bring her in front of him so he can show her off to the princes and the servants of the Persian Empire and the Median Empire, right? Because she was beautiful to look on. She was fair to look on. Verse 12. But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. So when the king sent his officers to go get Queen Vashti, she refused. She didn't go, right? She disobeyed by not going with him. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. This made the king angry, right? Not only did the queen embarrass the king by not going with the king's chamberlains to go to the king so he could show her off to the princes and the servants, but she also then embarrassed the king, and she also embarrassed everybody that was there as well. Verse 13. Then the king said to the wise men, which knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew law and judgment. And the next unto him was Karshanah, Shathar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsana, and Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face, and which sat the first in the kingdom. So he was angry. You could see it over his face that he was angry because Queen Vashti refused to go with his officers, so he was angry, right? And it was on his face, so it was very noticeable that he is angry because his queen, his wife, you know what I'm saying, disobeyed the order. What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to the law? Because she have not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains. So when I commanded my 7 chamberlains to go and grab my wife and bring her, she didn't go. She didn't come with them. So what shall we do to this woman for her disobedience? Verse 16. And Memucan answered before the king and the princess Vashti, the queen hath not done wrong to the king only, but also to the princes and to all the people that are in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus. So the princes of Persia and Media, they said this: Queen Vashti, your wife disobeying you, it doesn't only make you look bad, but it makes everyone in your kingdom and your provinces look bad. Verse 7. For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes. When it shall be reported, the king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. So the princess said, look, the disobedience of the queen Vashti, which is your wife, it doesn't only make you look bad, it makes us look bad, and it makes your kingdom look bad, because word is going to get out that the queen, your wife, disobeyed you. Now, the women that are in your provinces and in your empire, they're going to start to disobey their husbands. Verse 18. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes, which have heard of the deed of the queen. Thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto that is better than she. So basically, you know what I'm saying, the princes of Persia and Medes, they basically made a suggestion that, look, because Queen Vashti, your wife, your queen, because she disobeyed, why don't you just take away her position away from her, so that she will not be queen again, and put another woman in her position. Verse 20. And when the king's decree, which he shall make, shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both to great and small. So now the king said, look, alright, so my wife, she disobeyed me. She didn't only make me look bad, but she made the princes of the Persian Empire and the Median Empire look bad, and she made my whole empire look bad. Now, I'm going to choose another woman to put in her position, and Vashti is not going to be queen anymore because she disobeyed me. Now, the king is going to write a law, and he's going to post it up all throughout the kingdom, right? That every wife in this empire have to show their husbands honor, whether their husbands be rich or whether their husbands be poor or have not much money. Verse 21. And the saying pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Memucan. For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, into every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, and that it should be published according to the language of every people. So now this decree, this law was written, that every woman in this provinces and in this empire should obey their husbands, whether they be rich or whether they be poor, right? Husbands, they still deserve respect and honor, because he is the head of the household. Esther chapter 2 verse 1. After these things, when the wrath of King Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti and what she had done, and what was decreed against her. Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, let there be fair young virgins sought for the king. So we're going to get the biblical definition of virgin, right? Because a lot of people, you know what I'm saying, they basically lump up the American definition of virgin with the biblical virgin, right? Outline of biblical usage: virgin, maid, which is a woman, maidened, right? So a virgin, that does not mean a woman that has not had sex. According to the scriptures, a virgin does not mean a woman that has not had sex. It means, a virgin just simply means a maiden, a damsel, which is a woman. That's what virgin means, right? Then said the king's servants that minister unto him, let there be fair young women sought for the king. Because your queen, because your wife disobeyed you and made her, you, and your whole kingdom look bad. Let us look for you beautiful young women. So you could choose between either of them, so you could put them in the position that Vashti was in. Verse 3. And let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins which are women unto Shechem the palace, to the house of the women, unto the custody of Hegi, the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women, and let their things for purification be given them. So the chamberlain, we're going to look at what the definition of the chamberlain is, right? Outline of biblical usage: official, right? Eunuch, chamberlain, officer. So in this context, right? In this context, the chamberlain is an officer, and this chamberlain is the keeper of the woman, meaning that he keeps his eyes on the women, right? Meaning that he guards them, basically. So a chamberlain is an officer, is a keeper of the women, to keep them safe. And let their things for purification be given them. Verse 4. And let the maiden which pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. So the woman that the king likes, let that woman take the position of being queen over Vashti, his former wife that was disobedient and made her, and his whole kingdom look bad. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. Now in Shushan the palace there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shemael, the son of Kish, a Benjamite, in the Hebrew Banyamin. Verse 6. Who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity, which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. You read about that, about Israel being taken into captivity and being sold to the Persian and the Medes in the book of 1 Kings, chapter 17. Verse 7. And he brought up Hadassah Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter, right? So basically, Esther Mordecai had took care and raised up his cousin, right? Had took care and raised up his cousin. And her father and her mother were dead, right? She was a young woman. She was a maid. She was a virgin, which is a young woman. She was fair and she was beautiful, right? And Mordecai, right, being her cousin as well, he raised her up. So it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan the palace, to the custody of Hegi, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custody of Hegi, keeper of the women. And the maiden pleased him. So the woman, which is Esther Hadassah, she pleased him. Meaning she pleased Hegi, right? She was beautiful. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him. And he speedily gave her her things of purification, and such things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens, which were meet to be given her out of the king's house. And he preferred her and her maids, meaning her women, unto the best place of the house of the women. Esther had not showed her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it, right? And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the woman's house to know how Esther did and what should become of her. So Mordecai, he was keeping an eye on his cousin, even though he was outside of the king's palace and she was inside the king's palace, right? In another area of the house. Mordecai kept his eye on his cousin to make sure she was safe. Verse 12. Now every maid's turn was come to go into King Ahasuerus. So basically the women, they're going in front of the king one by one, right? The king is basically spending time with them, and he's seeing which one he's feeling, which one he likes. Now when every maid's turn was come to go into King Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months, according to the manner of the women. For so were the days of their purifications accomplished, to wit, 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors, and with other things for the purifying of the women. So this woman, Esther, she waited a whole year to meet this man, right? Verse 13. Then thus came every maiden unto the king, whatsoever she desired was giving her to go with her out of the house of the woman unto the king's house. In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned into the second house of the women, to the custody of Shaashgaz, the king's chamberlain, meaning officer, which kept the concubines. She came unto the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she were called by name. Now when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter, was come to go in unto the king, she required nothing but what Haggai, the king's officer, the keeper of the women, appointed, and Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her. Esther obtained favor from all the men that looked on her. She was beautiful, right? So these men, they were willing to do any and everything for this woman because how beautiful she was. Verse 16. So Esther was taken into King Ahasuerus into his house royal in the 10th month, which is the month Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, meaning more than all the young women. She was more beautiful, and she obtained more favor than them from the king, so that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. He told Vashti, you want to be disobedient? You want to make me look bad? You look bad. My kingdom, my empire look bad. Get up out of here. I'm taking your position from you. You're not the queen anymore. Now, Esther, she is the queen. Verse 18. Then the king made a great feast unto all his princes and his servants, even Esther's feast. And he made a release to the princes, to the provinces, and gave gifts according to the state of the king. And when the virgins were gathered together the second time, then Mordecai sat in the king's gate. Esther had not yet showed her kindred nor her people, as Mordecai had charged her, for Esther did the commandment of Mordecai, like as when she was brought up with him. So Esther was brought up by Mordecai to always be obedient. When you get a husband, obey him, right? Don't talk back to him, right? Esther, she was obedient. Verse 21. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, 2 of the king's chamberlains, meaning 2 of the king's officers, right, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wroth, and sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus, right? And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it unto Esther the queen, and Esther certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. So basically, these two officers of the king, they were angry because how can King Ahasuerus, which is a Persian, not choose any of the Persian women, but yet choose a Hebrew Israelite woman? They were angry over that. They were mad over that, and they were plotting to kill him, right? So Mordecai, which is Esther's cousin, he overheard the officers. So Mordecai told Esther. Esther, she basically wrote everything down that Mordecai told her. Verse 23. And when inquisition was made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore they were both hanged on a tree, and it was written in the book of the Chronicles before the king. Right? So when it was found out that they were plotting against the king, Mordecai told Esther. Esther wrote it down. You know what I'm saying? They both got hanged on a tree with a rope, right? Now it is in the king's records that they were plotting on him, to kill him. Esther chapter 3. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. So this man, right? So this man Haman, which is the Agagite, right? Which is a descendant of Esau, which is the Edomite. He was basically risen up in rank above all the princes of the Persian Empire. Verse 2. All the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed, nor did he reverence. So the definition, reverence, we're going to get that, right? The definition of reverence. Outline of biblical usage. To bow down, prostrate oneself before a superior in homage, meaning pay homage, right? Before God and worship, right? So basically, as this man Haman, he got his rank raised above all the princes of the empire of Persia, and these men, they bowed down to him. They showed him reverence, meaning they showed him respect, right? They showed respect unto him because he got raised up above them. But Mordecai, the Jew, he didn't bow down. He didn't show respect to Haman. Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, Why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Meaning, they looked at him. They all bowed down and showed respect to Haman. Mordecai didn't. They looked at Mordecai. Who is this man that is not bowing down and showing respect to this man, Haman, that got raised above us? Why is he disobeying King Ahasuerus' commandment to bow down unto Haman? Verse 4. Now it came to pass when they spake daily unto him, and he answered, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. So every day they asked him, why didn't you bow down and show respect to Haman? Do you think you better than him? Why didn't you bow down to him? He didn't say a word, but then he finally spoke. He finally told them that he was a Jew. He was a Hebrew. Verse 5. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, meaning when Haman saw that Mordecai the Jew, the Hebrew, did not bow down to him, did not show him reverence or respect, then was Haman full of wrath. Then Haman the Persian, he was full of anger. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. So now, because Mordecai did not show reverence, pay homage, show respect to Haman by bowing down to Haman, because Mordecai did not bow down to Haman, Haman said, look, because of your disobedience, I'm going to kill you and your whole nation of people, right? I'm going to wipe them from off the face of the earth. Verse 7. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast Pur, that is the lot, before Haman, from day to day, and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month Adar, right? There's the definition of lot. Lot, pebbles used for systematically making decisions, portions, right? So basically, they were basically, you know what I'm saying, they were basically talking or speaking of what to do with this man, what type of punishment to give him, right? They were basically gambling on what type of punishment to give Mordecai with pebbles, right? And they were using these pebbles to systematically make decisions on what to do, like making pebbles, right? Like throwing, like basically they were basically using the pebbles like how we use dice, how we throw dice at the walls. They were throwing the pebbles that way, right? And they were basically trying to come up with a way on how to, you know, judge Mordecai, what punishment that he would go through for his disobedience. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people. Neither keep they the king's laws, therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. So this snake, this heathen, Haman, he's mad because Mordecai did not bow down to him, did not show respect unto him. Mordecai said he was a Jew. I'm not bowing down to no one but the Lord Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai. And Mordecai said, look, I'm not just going to kill you, I'm going to kill your people. So Haman and his people, you know what I'm saying, they basically using these pebbles to cast lots to make a decision on what type of punishment Mordecai would go through. So Haman went to the king of Ahasuerus and said, look, there's a certain type of people that live in your kingdom that you're over, that these type of people, they don't speak your language. You know what I'm saying? They don't keep your laws. They don't serve you. They're Jews, they're Hebrews, the language they speak is Hebrew. You know what I'm saying? The God that they serve is a God that forbids them to bow down to anyone. So Haman, he started to plot against Mordecai, right? That's why Haman went to the king. He said that these people in your kingdom, their laws are different from our laws. They don't follow our laws. You know what I'm saying? They don't bow down to men. So why should you keep them alive in your kingdom? If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business to bring it into the king's treasuries. So basically Haman said to the king, look, like, if you want these people dead, if it doesn't profit you to keep these people alive because they are disobedient unto you, if you want them dead, let me know. I'll pay 10,000 pieces of silver to anybody who destroys them. Verse 10. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. So a king in ancient times, even in ancient Israel, a ring, it means, is a symbol of authority and power and kingship. So when the king of Ahasuerus gave Haman his ring, Haman had all the authority, right? And he had all the power. So he said, look, now you got the ring. Now you got the power and authority. So my officers, now they are under you. You could command them to do what you want them to do. And the silver, my money that I had, you could take that. You could take 10,000 pieces of silver out of that. You can give it to whoever you want to give it to after they kill Mordecai and the Jews, right? This is what this jealous heathen have done. Envious heathen has done, right? All because Mordecai did not bow down and show respect unto him. Verse 12. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, to every people after their language. And the name of King Ahasuerus was it written and sealed with the king's ring. So now, you know what I'm saying, after the king Ahasuerus then gave Haman his ring, now Haman, he was in authority, power, he was in position, right? So now Haman, he hired scribes, right, to write down this letter, and this letter that the Jews would be killed, that the Jews should be killed, and that Haman will give 10,000 pieces of silver to anybody who kills the Jews, right, who wipes the Jews off the face of the earth. So Haman got his scribes to write that in a letter, right? And Haman, he sealed it with the king's ring, with the king's signet, right? So basically, he had power to do so. Verse 13. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, and one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. In the letter it said, kill all the Jews, kill the women, kill the men, kill the children, kill everybody on the 13th day of the 12th month. That's what it said on the letter, that on the 13th day of the 12th month, the Persian army would kill the Jews, the men, women, and children, and take everything they got. It was written and it was posted all over the empire of Persia. Verse 14. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. The post went out being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace. And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed. Right, so remember the letter, it basically was, it had the king's signet on it, his ring on there, right? So whatever is written on that letter, it cannot be turned back because the king's signet is on there. Verse 4. Then Mordecai perceived all that was done. Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out into the midst of the city and cried with a loud and a bitter cry, and came even before the king's gate, for none might enter for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews, and fasting, and weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told it her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai, and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not. Then called Esther for Hatak, one of the king's chamberlains, meaning one of the king's officers, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai to know what it was and why it was. Right? So Esther told Hatak, said, Hatak, come here, I want you to go to Mordecai. And asked Mordecai, like, what's the problem? What's the reason that you're doing this for? Tell me. Tell me, and I'll go back to tell Esther. So Hatak went forth to Mordecai into the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them. So Mordecai told Hatak everything, right? Also, he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto Esther, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king to make supplication unto him, and to make requests before him for her people. So the letter that Haman deceitfully devised against the Jews, a copy of that letter was taken. A copy of that letter Mordecai took from the wall, from the wall of the provinces, right? And he gave it to Hatak, and Hatak gave it to Esther. Now Esther is going to give that letter to the king, to King Ahasuerus, the king of the Persian Empire. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to put him to death, except such of whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. So Esther, basically, she cannot go in front of the king Ahasuerus if she's not called. If she does go before him, if she's not called, the consequence is death. Verse 12. And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. Basically, Esther told Hatak to tell Mordecai that she cannot go in front of the king if she is not called. If she goes in front of the king, if she is not called, she will get put to death. So Mordecai told Hatak to tell Esther that, look, just because you are the queen of the king, don't think that you will escape from this wicked device that is plotted against us Jews as a nation. You're going to die too. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time at this? For such a time as this. Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer. Go gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish. So basically, Esther told Mordecai, you and every Jew that is in the palace of Shushan, I want y'all to fast and pray for 3 days. Fast and pray for 3 days. And me and my servants, my women, my maiden servants, my maidens, we're gonna fast and pray for 3 days as well. And when I go in front of the king, knowing that I cannot, if I die, I'll just die. So Esther, she was prepared to lose her life for the safety and the deliverance of her people. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. Esther chapter 5. Now it came to pass on the third day that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house. So after the fast, after 3 days of fasting, right, of no water and no food, of praying and fasting unto the Most High, right, to deliver them from the hands of the Persians, which are their enemies that try to kill them. Esther, she took a bath, she got dressed, braided up her hair and whatnot, and she went in front of the king. And it was so, when the king saw Esther the queen standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter. Then said the king unto her, What wilt thou, queen Esther? And what is thy request? It shall be given thee to the half of the kingdom. So basically, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. The half of the kingdom is yours anyway, because you are my queen. And Esther answered, If it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, Cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther has said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. So now Esther, she's basically preparing a feast for the king and Haman. Haman is the one who is basically, devising wickedness to kill off the children of Israel, to kill off the Jews, right? So Esther is going to give the king his letter. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, What is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? Even to the half of the kingdom it shall be performed. Then answered Esther and said, My petition is my request. My petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition, and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king hath said. Then went Haman forth that day joyful and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. So Haman, he was already happy, because the reason he was happy, because Haman had made a feast for him and the king. So he was happy, right? Little did he know that he was going to get it, that the evil mischief and the evil device that he devised against Haman and all the Jews was going to get exposed. He didn't know that. So he was just happy to sit among Esther and Ahasuerus. But when he saw Mordecai, he was full of indignation. He was full of anger, because he remembered that Mordecai did not pay homage to him. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself. And when he came home, he sent and called for his friends and Zeresh his wife. And Haman told them of the glory of his riches, and the multitude of his children, and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the princes and the servants of the king. So now Haman told his wife, Look, the king then promoted me to be above all the princes of his empire, and the king gave me his ring. So I have all power and authority, right? So I have power and authority to command the Persian Empire, right? The army. Haman said, moreover, Yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared but myself. And tomorrow am I invited unto her, also with the king. So he was bragging, look, Esther, she ain't choose nobody else to come to this banquet with her and the king but me. And tomorrow, I'm going to this banquet. Verse 13. Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitteth at the king's gate. He said, look, even though, you know what I'm saying, I got invited to the banquet, I'm still not happy because Mordecai is alive. Because every day I walk to the king's chamber, I gotta look at this fool who didn't show me respect. So Haman, he was furious, he was angry. Then says the rest his wife and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. So basically, we're going to look up gallows, right? The definition of gallows. So basically, Haman's wife and his friends, they, they suggested that Haman make a gallows to hang Mordecai by his neck. Outline of biblical usage: tree, wood, timber, stock, plank, stalk, stick, gallows, right? Gallows is basically like two. All right, so gallows is basically two wooden planks, and a third two wooden planks horizontally. Two wooden planks vertically, one on the left, one on the right, and a plank horizontally, one in the middle, right? Going left and right, and you tie a string, a rope, around the plank in the center, and you tie a loop to pit, so you could be able to pit around the neck, and so you can hang a person. That's what a gallows is. So Haman's wife and his friends suggested that he make a gallows to hang Mordecai with. Esther chapter 6. On that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of the records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king. So in chapter 6, the king, he couldn't sleep. The Lord put it on the king's spirit that something is wrong here. Somebody's about to die unjustly. On that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of the records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. So now King Ahasuerus, he's saying that the reason that he knows that his two officers were getting ready to kill him because of Mordecai told Esther, and Esther told the king. And Esther wrote it. And Esther wrote it down, right? Kept it for records. Now this is the first time that King Ahasuerus is seeing this. Verse 3. And the king said, what honor and dignity have been done to Mordecai for this? Meaning, Mordecai is the reason I'm alive. He's the reason these officers are dead now. He's the reason that I am alive, because he told Esther, and Esther wrote it down, kept it in the records, and I read it, or I got it read unto me. He is the reason I'm alive. What was done for this man? What was given to him because he has saved my life? There is nothing done for him. And the king said, who was in the court? Now Haman was coming to the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king, to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. So now, as the king Ahasuerus, the king of Persia, of the Persian Empire, getting the records of the chronicles of Mordecai, telling Esther about the two kings that tried to, the two officers that tried to kill the king. As the king is getting it read to him, Haman is coming to the king, you know what I'm saying, so he can basically make a petition unto the king to kill, so Haman could kill Mordecai, can hang Mordecai by a rope, choke him to death. Verse 5. And the king's servant said unto him, behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, let him come in. So Haman came, and So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, What shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor? So now Haman thinks that the king is going to bless him, right? So now Haman start telling the king that you should do this and you should do that. You should get his man honor. You should get his man riches. Give him whatever he want, right? Haman thinks the king is talking about him. But Haman is going to find out that it's Mordecai that is being talked of. So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, What shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor? Now Haman thought in his heart, meaning he thought in his mind, To whom would the king delight to do honor more than to myself? And Haman answered the king, For the man whom the king delighted to honor, let the royal apparel be brought which the king uses to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal which is set upon his head. And let his apparel and his horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man withal whom the king delighteth to honor, and bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighteth to honor. So Haman is telling the king, yeah, you should do this, you should do that, you should give your best clothing and a crown to your most noblest princes in your empire, and you should give these things to him, and you should give a horse unto him as well. And he, the most noble prince in your empire, should give the clothing, the crown, and the horses to the man that you deem to to the man that you delight in and that you deem to honor. Give everything to him. Haman thinks the king is talking of him, but the king is talking of Mordecai. But Haman do not know that the king didn't have got Mordecai's deed written to him from the Chronicles. Then the king said to Haman, Make haste and take the apparel and the horse, as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai the Jew that sitteth at the king's gate. Let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken. Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaimed before him, Thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor. And Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted to his house, mourning and having his head covered. So Haman, he was sick, he was mad, because he thought he was going to get the fly garments and the crown. He thought he was going to be able to ride on horseback through the city and everybody see him and he show off. But all of that is given to Mordecai. Haman sick, he mad. So he go home sad as a dog with his head down, covered. He's saddened, real sad. And Haman told Zeresh his wife and all his friends everything that had befallen him. Then said his wise men and Zeresh his wife unto him, If Mordecai be of the seed of the Jews before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shalt surely fall before him. So Mordecai was like, look, everything that I thought that I was going to get, I didn't get. But Mordecai got it instead. So now his friends and his wife said, look, if you trying to destroy Mordecai, and if he's a Jew, you're not going to prevail. You're not going to get it done. You're going to fail. And while they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlains, and hasted to bring Haman into the banquet that Esther had prepared, right? So now, the king knows that Mordecai is the reason why he's alive. But he doesn't know, what he doesn't know is that Haman had basically devised a plan to kill Mordecai and the rest of the Jews because Mordecai would not bow down and pay homage to Haman. The king doesn't know that yet, but Esther is going to read him the copy of the decree, the copy of the letter that Haman had posted all throughout the empire, right? At the banquet tomorrow. Esther chapter 7 verse 1. So the king and Haman came to the banquet with Esther the queen. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, What is thy petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? And it shall be performed, even to the half of the kingdom. Then Esther the queen answered and said, If I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition and my people at my request. So he was like, look, hey, look, you my queen, you beautiful. Just tell me what you want. And everything that's to the half of the kingdom will be yours. Whatever you want, just tell me your petition. Tell me what you want, and I'm going to give it to you. Verse 4. For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, to perish, and to perish. But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage. So now Esther starts to tell the king, me and my people, we have a wicked plan devised against us to wipe us from off the face of the earth. Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen, Who is he, and where is he that durst presume in his heart, which is mine, to do so? Meaning, who is the man who basically want to kill you and your people? And Esther said, The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. So Haman, that's when he found out. So he went to the banquet thinking that he was going to get a petition from the king to hang, Mordecai on the gallows and kill all the Jews. Now, Esther didn't have, told the king that Mordecai then devised a wicked plan to kill Mordecai and her people. So now Mordecai is scared, he afraid, you know what I'm saying? He probably defecating in his drawers, you know what I'm saying? And the king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden. And Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther, the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. So now Haman pleading for his life. Please, don't kill me. Please don't kill me. I'm sorry. Don't kill me. I was wrong. I shouldn't have done what I done. Now he pleading for his life. He's scared because the king already mad. The king just had to get up and walk off because he was so angry. Right? Verse 8. And the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine. And Haman was fallen upon the bed whereunto Esther was. Then said the king, Will he force the queen also before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. So now Haman, he tried to like kiss up to Esther. But the king answered, but the king commanded his officers to put a bag over Haman's head. And Harbona, one of the chamberlains, one of the officers, said before the king, Behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, Hang him thereon. So Harbona, one of the king's officers, said, Look, the gallows, right? Remember the two planks, the one on the left, the one on the right, and the plank in the middle with the rope tied in the center and the loop tied to form a circle to hang Mordecai. Haman and the rest of his friends saying they created that, they built it already. and is already hung up. So King Ahasuerus said, look, I want you to hang Haman on a device that he created to hang Mordecai on. Verse 10. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king wrath pacified. Right? So now Mordecai was dead. Just like he devised that wicked plan, you know what I'm saying, to plot to kill Mordecai, you know what I'm saying, to make like a gallows, which are two vertical beams, one on the left, one on the right, and a horizontal beam going straight across the two vertical the two vertical beams with rope tied in the middle to hang Mordecai with. Now the king had ordered Haman to be hanged with that same gallows that he made to hang Mordecai with. And the king's wrath, it was brought low. The king wasn't angry anymore. The book of Esther chapter 8. Verse 1. On that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman the Jews' enemy unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. So now you got the king, he gave the house of Haman unto Esther the queen, right? So basically, Haman's family was now under servitude by Esther, the queen. And Mordecai went before the king, and he told the king who he was to Esther. Right? Mordecai told the king that he was Esther's cousin, and that Esther was his younger cousin, and he was her older cousin, and that her father and her mother died, and he was raising her as his own daughter. Verse 2. And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. So now the ring that the king gave to Haman, the king took it back from Haman, and the king gave his ring to Mordecai. And Mordecai is over Haman's household, meaning he's over Haman's family instead of Esther. And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, with his device that he had devised against the Jews. Then the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king, and said, If it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews which are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come unto my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Basically, she asked the king that, look, the plot, the letter that Haman had got written to kill the Jews, I want you to turn it around and reverse it, so that the Jews can kill the Persian army. Right? Verse 7. Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther, the queen and to Mordecai the Jew, Behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and whom they have hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews. Write ye also for the Jews as it liketh you in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written in the king's name, and sealed it with the king's ring, And ain't no man reverse. So now, you know what I'm saying, Esther, she got the king's scribes to rewrite uh, the plan over, right? That the Jews would kill the people who tried to kill them. And Mordecai sealed it with the king's ring so that nobody could reverse what was written in that letter. Then were the king's scribes called at that time in the 3rd month, that is the month Sivan, on the 23rd day thereof, on the 23rd day thereof. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to the lieutenants, and the deputies, and the rulers of the provinces which are from India unto Ethiopia, and 127 provinces, unto every province, according to the writing thereof, and unto every people after their language, and to the Jews according to their writing, and according to their language. And he wrote, and the king Ahasuerus' name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries, wherein the king granted the Jews, which were in every city, to gather themselves together, and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people in providence that would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. That is what's in the letter now. Esther and Mordecai had that written in the letter. Mordecai sealed that letter with the king's ring. So it is final. Verse 12. Upon one day in all the province of King Ahasuerus, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. So the posts that rode upon the mules and camels went out, being hastened, and pressed on by the king's commandment. And the decree was given at Shushan, the palace. And Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. So Mordecai was fresh. He had the garments on, you know what I'm saying, and he had the crown on. And he went out of the city of Shushan, and he was glad. He rejoiced and was glad. He was happy, right? That his people ain't got to die no more. Now his people could kill those who wanted to kill them. But all of this, the deliverance is from the Lord. The Lord is the cause of this deliverance. Honor and glory and exaltation is due unto him. And in every providence and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. Esther chapter 9 verse 1. Now in the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, and the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them. The Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all people. So now you got the people that rode with Haman. They all gathered together on the 13th day of the 12th month. They all gathered together, met up, right? They all gathered together, met up to kill the Jews, right? But the Jews gathered together to kill them. And the Jews did overthrow the Persians. And all the rulers of the provinces and the lieutenants and the deputies and officers of the king helped the Jews because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. So you even got the Persian and the Persian officers, lieutenants, deputies. They even helped Mordecai and the Jews because Mordecai had authority and power. You know what I'm saying? Just like Joseph was second in command in Egypt, Mordecai, he had authority and power. The Lord then gave him that, then blessed him with that. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter, and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. So the Jews killed the Persians. They slaughtered them. Right? This is why exaltation and praise is worthily given unto the Lord, Yahweh, Ba'ashmi Yahushai, because he delivered us. He delivered our nation. We don't blindly follow the high holy days. We celebrate these high holy days for a reason. The main reason is to exalt the Lord for his deliverance of his people and to give him praise and honor. And in Shushan the palace, the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. And Parshindatha and Delphon and Aspatha and Poratha and Adaliah and Aridatha and Parmashta and Ariza and Aridal and Vajasatha, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews, slew they, but on the spoil laid not their hand. On that day the number of those that were slain in Shushan the palace was brought before the king. So Haman's 10 sons were put to death as well. And everything that they had was taken and brought to the king. And the king said unto Esther the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the palace, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the kings? And the sons of Haman, what have they done in the rest of the kings, provinces? Now, what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. Or what is thy request further? And it shall be done. Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan, to do tomorrow also according unto this day's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king commanded it so to be done. And the decree was given at Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month Adar, which is today, and slew 300 men at Shushan, but on the prey they laid not their hand. So basically, on the 14th day of the first month, which is today, on the 14th day of the 12th month Adar, which is today, the Jews, they slaughtered the Persians of Shushan, which is the Persian Empire. The Jews killed them, but the Jews did not take what they had. But the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew of their foes 75,000. But they laid not their hands on the prey. On the 13th day of the month Adar, and on the 14th day of the same rested they, made it a day of fasting and gladness. But the Jews that were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th thereof, and on the 15th day of the same they rested, and made it a day of fasting and gladness. Therefore the Jews of the villages that dwelt in the inward walled and the unwalled towns, the 14th day of the month Adar, a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and of sending portions one to another. Right? So now they was happy. So now on the 14th, so you got some Jews made it a day of gladness, feasting and resting on the 13th day, the 14th day, and the 15th day, right? So you got some Jews on the unwalled towns. They made it a day of fasting, gladness, and joyfulness on the 14th day, and they were giving presents to one another. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, meaning both close and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar and the 15th day of the same yearly. The 14th day of the 12th month Adar, which is today, and the 15th day of the 12th month Adar, which is tomorrow, that they should keep this feast day yearly, right? And give presents to one another. You know what I'm saying? Show reverence, honor, worship, and praise unto the Most High Yahweh Bashmi Yahushai for delivering his enemies. As the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of fasting and joy of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them, because Haman the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast Pur, that is the lot, to consume them and to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device, which he devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his son should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they call these days Purim, after the name of Pur, right? We're going to check out the definition of Pur, or the name of Pur, right? Outline of biblical usage. Pur or Purim, lot or peace, right? So the definition of Purim is basically a lot, right? Like how Haman and his princes, they basically cast lot, meaning they use pebbles. They threw pebbles against walls, right, in order to make decisions on how to deal with Mordecai because of his disobedience, right? So that's where Purim comes from. The Pur comes from casting lots. Wherefore they call these days Purim, after the name of Pur. Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, in which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing, and according to their appointed time every year. And that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. Then Esther, the queen of the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew, wrote with all authority to confirm this second letter of Purim. And he sent the letters unto all the Jews to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, the words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim, in their times appointed, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them, decreed for themselves and for their seed the matters of the fastings and their cry. And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book, right? Chapter 10. And the king Ahasuerus laid a tribute upon the land and upon the isles of the sea, and all the acts of his power and of his might, and the declaration of greatness of Mordecai, whereunto the king advanced him, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was next until King Ahasuerus. So Mordecai was second in command in the Persian Empire, and great among the Jews, and accepted of the multitude of his brethren, seeking the wealth of his people and speaking peace to all his people, right? So that is the reason why we celebrate the Feast of Purim on the 12th month, on the 13th day, on the 14th day and the 15th day of the 12th month, Adar. Today is the 14th day of the 12th month, Adar, which is the Feast of Purim. We celebrate the Feast of Purim because we were delivered from the wicked. We destroyed them instead of them destroying us. You know what I'm saying? We give all praise, glory, and honor to the Most High Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, for delivering us from our enemies. Every high holy day we celebrate of the Lord. It is celebration. We are celebrating these holidays for a reason, because we are delivered from our enemies. We are a nation. We are not destroyed. We are not wiped from off the face of the earth. We are prosperous. We are abundant as a nation. You know what I'm saying? This is why we celebrate the Lord's feast days. So brothers and sisters, I hope you've been edified, you know what I'm saying, through the spirit of the Most High Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai. You know what I'm saying? Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Barakatham to all my brothers. Shalom, Yahweh, Shamar, Al-Athan, Ba'ashem Yahushai to all my sisters. Again, this is your brother Sharamoth, founder of the Disciples of Yahushai, and I hope you've been edified through the spirit of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai. But shalom, that's my time.